to hear from just sent me a message and they said, OMG, 111K, as in $111,000 per Bitcoin. And then they asked a question, a great question, which is, will you ever have a number? Question mark. Well, what do you think they mean by that? Well, what I assume they meant is, will you ever have a number at which you will sell Bitcoin? My response was no. And of course, I'll sell Bitcoin to buy things that improve the life of my family or myself. For example, I talked for quite a while about how I wanted a Tesla. And eventually, the price of Bitcoin got high enough, my confidence in Bitcoin got high enough, that I took out a Trustmark car loan, and so I didn't have to buy Bitcoin or sell Bitcoin, and I bought a 2026 Tesla Model Y. And it's super cool, and I love it. It drives me everywhere without me having to touch the steering wheel or the pedals. Like, I literally just sit there, and then I program the GPS, and I hit drive me there, and then it drives me there without me having to touch anything, which is absolutely amazing. So yeah, I could have sold Bitcoin for that, but Trustmark was willing to give me a 6% auto loan. And since I believe Bitcoin's going to go up more than 6% a year, a lot more than 6% a year, I took Trustmark up on that offer, and I took out an auto loan and I bought a Tesla. But a lot of things you can't do that with. For example, my house needs a whole house generator because Entergy cannot seem to keep my power on to save their lives. But that costs $20,000, which is right now at $100,000 per Bitcoin was 1/5 of a Bitcoin. At $110,000 is somewhere between 1/5 and 1/6 of a Bitcoin. And I don't want to spend more than 1/6 of a Bitcoin on a whole house generator. So $20,000, once the price of Bitcoin gets to $120,000, that'll be 1/6. I'm willing to spend 1/6 of a Bitcoin for a whole house generator so I don't sit in the dark. Now, my security systems are all set up on battery backup, so they're not affected, but my air conditioner is. And when the power goes out, I'm in the dark, I'm hot, and I can't take a hot shower because my water heaters are electric lit. Even though they're gas powered, they're electric lit, so they won't light. Anyway, so it'd be nice to have all of those things and all of the comforts of life when my power is constantly going out. So I will sell Bitcoin for stuff like that because I can't finance a generator, at least not elegantly like you can a house or a car or something like that. But there's no price that I'm planning to sell Bitcoin. And the reason is, what would I sell it for? See, anytime someone asks the question, what's your number? They assume you're going to sell back into US dollars. But why would I sell back into US dollars? Why would I move from an asset that nobody in the world can make more of to an asset that a handful of people can make more of anytime they want? So the goal is always to go to a more scarce asset rather than a less scarce asset. Increasingly, the US dollar is not a scarce asset. And because it's not a scarce asset, then I absolutely do not want to trade a scarce asset like Bitcoin for something that the government just prints out of thin air anytime they want, like the US dollar. So I'm willing to trade Bitcoin for a whole house generator. I'm willing to trade Bitcoin over the course of 5 years for a 2026 Tesla Model Y, which I already did because I have to pay Trustmark back at 6% interest for the price of that car over the course of 5 years. So I'm willing to plan on liquidating a little bit of Bitcoin every month to make that car payment. And I'm willing to do other things. I'm willing to spend Bitcoin so my family can travel. We travel a lot, internationally and domestically. And that is a worthwhile expenditure of Bitcoin, in my opinion. Now, I also get a paycheck, so, a lot of those expenses are paid straight up with a paycheck. But whatever amount is not covered by a paycheck comes out of Bitcoin, because that's the only source of capital I have. And then, of course, every time a paycheck hits, I buy more Bitcoin. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork, I buy more Bitcoin. But that doesn't mean things don't come along like a whole house generator that is not covered by my paycheck, and I gotta, have source funds somewhere. So that comes from long-term savings called Bitcoin. So anyway, so anytime you're thinking of selling Bitcoin, ask yourself, sell it for what? You could sell it and buy real estate, but a real estate has property taxes, maintenance fees. Real estate is really expensive right now. Stocks are really expensive. Bonds are really expensive. Like, everything's really expensive right now. So I don't think any asset is worth, there's no asset that I'm willing to worth trading for Bitcoin, because every other asset is an asset that someone can make more of, or that's not, that's whose price is significantly inflated right now. So for stocks, every company can issue more of their own stock. So their stock is only as as scarce as their management team decides to make it. Same for bonds. Every country or company can just issue more bonds anytime they want. And the interest rate just determines what the market appetite is for that. For real estate, people can constantly build more real estate. They just can. Even waterfront property, people are constantly coming up with creative ways to create more artificial land and create more waterfront property. So there's nothing really scarce in the world other than Bitcoin. And from an absolute basis, gold is relatively scarce. The problem is there's there's just an insane amount of gold under the ground and in the oceans and on asteroids. It's just really hard to get to it. But at some point, humans may find ways to get to asteroids and mine gold on asteroids, or find a way to get the gold out of the ocean. And there's tons of it in the ocean in trace amounts. If somebody found a way to filter it out of ocean water from the oceans, there's a ton of gold there. I've been told. I have not fact-checked that, but I've been told. And same with underground. There's just a ton of gold underground that, for the right price, you can go dig it up. So Bitcoin is the only truly scarce thing in the world that is decentralized. It's not controlled by anyone. Nobody can make more of it. There's more than 100,000 people in the world with a complete and total veto power over Bitcoin. And I am one of those people because I run a Bitcoin node, which only costs you $500. It's actually $430. If you want to run a Bitcoin node, it's called Umbrel, UMBREL, website umbrel.com. That's UMBREL.com. You can buy one of those things, plug it into your home Wi-Fi, download the Bitcoin node app on it, and you too will have a veto over anyone changing the Bitcoin network. Because if they change it and you don't like it, all you have to do is not upgrade to whatever change they make, and it will force the Bitcoin network. It'll force people that made the change you don't like to the core rules. It'll force them off the network. And so more than 100,000 people have that veto power, including me. And I run 2 nodes. And a lot of people I know run nodes. So Bitcoin is the only truly scarce, truly decentralized thing that you can be absolutely certain that no one will make more of. And so it just doesn't make sense to trade something that no one can make more of for something that people can make more of. Now, one day, when the entire world has adopted Bitcoin as its currency, and Bitcoin is the only money in the world, then yes, it will still go up in value about 3% per year because humans get 3% better at making stuff every year. So instead of inflating away over time, your purchasing power will always go up over time. But if you want to get more than 3% per year in Bitcoin, we're talking like 25 years into the future. Between now and then, the upside, I think, is radically higher than that. But even when it is fully monetized and everyone in the world is using Bitcoin, the price of the purchasing power, I should say, of Bitcoin will still go up 3% per year because that is human productivity growth. And as humans get better at making stuff, the finite 21 million Bitcoin that will ever exist gets more and more purchasing power because there's more stuff you can buy with the Bitcoin, but there's not more of the Bitcoin. So at that point, let's call it 25 years in the future, yes, you'll need to invest in stocks and bonds and commodities and real estate if you want to get a return higher than 3%. But right now you don't have to. If you want a return that is better and higher, in my opinion, than stocks, bonds, real estates, commodities, and anything else you could possibly invest in my opinion, that return is available right now in the form of Bitcoin, available to everyone worldwide, tradable 24/7 in every currency on the planet, and able to be purchased. You can buy anything in the world. That'll take a Visa card with the Coinbase debit card, which you can set to spend Bitcoin. Or you can, a lot of people will sell you stuff just for straight up Bitcoin without even going through Visa or some other payment provider. So anyway, do I have a number at which I would sell Bitcoin? No, I do not have a number because there is no asset. The problem is a number indicates that there's an asset that I'm willing to trade for. And a number, when people say a number, they presumably mean the US dollar. The problem is I'm not willing to trade Bitcoin for US dollars. That's not a trade I'm willing to make at any price. And even if you said, yeah, but what about at $1 million? It's like, well, all that tells me is that the government has completely inflated the value of the US, or they've inflated the money supply, thereby making the value of Bitcoin go way up. And if the price of Bitcoin goes to $1 million, there's no reason it doesn't go to $10 million. At that point, the government is so irresponsible. Why would I trade it for a failing currency? Why would I trade Bitcoin for a failing currency? So, no, I don't have a number. I do not intend to trade Bitcoin for US dollars. There is no number at which I'm planning to convert Bitcoin into US dollars. Although along the way, as my purchasing power goes up with Bitcoin, I will do things that improve the life of me and my family, but that is not trading Bitcoin for any specific number in US dollars. That is trading Bitcoin for something that improves my life and the life of my family in some way. That's worth the price of worth more to me than the Bitcoin I would hold that would have to be swapped for that. So I don't have a number, and I'm in it for the long haul because Bitcoin is the best money that has ever existed in the world, and I think will continue to take over and be the primary and only money in the decades ahead. Have a great night, everyone.